I can.
Wonderful. Thank you for bearing with us.
Sure. You all hear me okay?
We hear you great. I had a little glitch with my PowerPoint. Thank you for jumping in and joining us. I'll ask Courtney to begin recording our meeting, and then we will begin.
Very good. Well, you want me to kick things off?
I'll open it up and I'll ask you to make some
Very
remarks.
good.
Yes. So thank you everyone for joining our COVID and Beyond webinar series. This is our second in a series focused on economic conditions hitting our Baltimore County economy during COVID. County Executive has been meeting with businesses and affected workers and groups that advocate for them throughout COVID. And we're continuing this series today by focusing very specifically on helping displaced workers in COVID-19. We have 5 panelists I'll mention, and then we'll jump into our remarks by asking our county executive to open up. We have 2 guests joining us from the Department of Labor. I'll ask them to introduce themselves following the county executive's remarks, and that's Michael Harrison and Andrew Fulginiti from representing Secretary Robinson of Department of Labor. From CCBC, we have Steve Church, the Assistant Dean of Health and Human Services. And then from our own team here in Baltimore County, we have Howard Marshall, manager of our career centers, and Tracy Tyler, the career center manager at Liberty. So with that, what I'd like to do is ask folks to stay on mute. Courtney is behind the scenes, muting and unmuting people. And on the other end of our web address, we have people receiving questions throughout the meeting and sending them on to us that we can bring them to our panel. But before we get into our panel, I would like to ask our county executive to make some opening remarks and help kick it off. We've been doing quite a number of things during COVID. And when the response started back in March, he jumped into this crisis, not just in the public health sphere, but in the helping of families, helping of affected workers, helping of small businesses. We have a number of programs kicking off this month as well that continues in that response. So with that, I'd like our County Executive Olszewski to kick off our webinar, if you would.
Sure, Will, and thank you so much for having me on today. I really appreciate the opportunity. I know we've got some really important folks that have pertinent information for everyone listening and watching today. So I will be brief, but I just want everyone listening to know that with new information coming in each and every day on medical, scientific, economic fronts, that we are fully engaged in doing all that we can to promote both the dual priorities of keeping our residents safe, but also recognizing that we are facing a faltering economy and that there are people who need supports on the business front. So I want to thank Will's team, the Department of Economic and Workforce Development and their partners for putting together this webinar series. I think it's truly critical for us as you find out about job resources and have questions answered about things like the state's unemployment insurance program, as we know firsthand how many people are in need of those supports. I just want to say, I'm aware of the frustrations that people are facing out there, and I think this is an example of our team being in touch to share those concerns with our partners at the Maryland Department of Labor every day. We know they're working hard to overcome their problems, and I hope that they are able to find a solution that allows even additional processing to happen sooner. In Baltimore County, team members at DUDE and our administration are here to help as well, connecting to all the federal, local, and state resources that are out there, posting job opportunities, helping to navigate the processes, and just to know we're also working with the employers out there to help keep them afloat so that they can do the hiring that is so needed. I wanted to thank all the panelists for participating today, all that they're doing to help get people through this very difficult time. As Will mentioned, this is the second webinar in a series focused on helping displaced workers, and we really appreciate all who have hopped on today to answer questions and provide opportunities. We hope that if people have additional needs afterwards, they'll stay in touch, and please know that we again are here to do all that we can in these unprecedented and uncertain times. Unfortunately, this may be longer and more sustained than we think, but wanted to just affirm Baltimore County's commitment to all of our residents. So with that, Will, I'll turn things back over to you and your panelists, and I want to thank them again for joining today.
Mr. County Executive, thank you for making time, setting up this series and jumping on. We know you're juggling a million things, and it is really an active time on the labor side, on the unemployment side. So we thank you. I know you're jumping in and out of meetings. If you have to leave us, we will be wrapping up and letting you know where we end up. So with that, I'd like to frame out the meeting. I will turn off this PowerPoint so you can see all of our panelists as we go forward. And what our focus today is, and how we are going to proceed through our panelists and the taking questions from workers. We're going to end with resources for people. You'll see that we have an email address, businesshelp@baltimorecountymd.gov. If you can feed your questions during the event to that address. Todd Dolbin's on the other line of that address, and he's sending them in to us as we speak. I already see some questions coming in from Katie and Candy and a number of folks. So let me just frame our discussion before we get into our panel, because there's a number of things that are going on at the local, state, and federal level that are difficult to frame sometimes and keep our hands around, but it's important for us to attempt to see where we are. There's been some breaking news, some good news really from Secretary Robinson earlier today and at the federal level about the nature of unemployment payments. So I know a lot of our attendees are asking questions about those payments. Here's the reality, and that is that when unemployment surged in this county and in this state, it surged across the country. And the unprecedented amount of people, claims that are joining the unemployment ranks, 30 million people, 17 million of, nearly 18 million of them are getting payments already, is so exceptional that it's flooded every system that is out there. So it's these problems of getting everyone that we've sent home from work on unemployment are not unique to us. They're not unique to Baltimore County or Maryland. They're everywhere throughout the state. When you look at what's going on in Baltimore County, and I can't see my own screen. Howard, are we looking at our Baltimore County numbers here? Can you just nod for me? Thank you. This is the arc of unemployment in Baltimore County in the past 7 weeks. So we know this is a little bit lagging data. So we certainly have over 60,000 newly unemployed in Baltimore County just during COVID. You can see the spike week that we had a couple weeks ago. I suspect we're going to see our numbers going back up because of the new system that the state put in. But that just frames for you where we're at relative to the nation. We're arcing at the same arc they are. And when we look at what industries does that hit, the Federal Reserve of Atlanta has stood up a new tool that was just shared with us about their unemployment claims monitor from around the country. So this is just one piece of data that's in there, but we know that there's an uptick of unemployment across every one of these color schemes. There's really, maybe there's some wholesale trade that's slightly flattened, but we know that this is a universal hit against our industries. And when you think about the work that we've been doing in Baltimore County over the past 3 years, looking at our assumptions about growth, our lines went the other way. These are all the industries of Baltimore County and projected growth over the next 10 years. We've been building economic development and workforce development programming based on the jobs we saw coming in the next 10 years around our core 9 cluster industries, which are each isolated by these different colors. We're going to be rethinking these assumptions. That is very clear. I think everything is going to be rethought about what industries are completely changed on the other side of it and which just take a year or two to come back. I think the key that we wanted to talk about today for all of the workers that are on the other end of this meeting is really where are we now before we even think about where are we in long-term recovery programs. I'll make quick mention of these, and then as we get into our panelists, I'll invite our panelists to talk in more detail. Certainly, this is a federal level pandemic and a federal level problem that needs federal level solutions, and we've seen them. Under the CARES Act, the direct payments have started coming to our families. The pandemic unemployment addition to regular unemployment at the state level has been coming. There's been benefits under Family First about relative to leave, and we're also seeing training dollars starting to flow out of the federal level into the states. The state where a lot of the unemployment crisis has been hitting, they have a heavy role in the unemployment claims. They're also dealing with rapid response to layoffs with our teams, our local teams, and they too are providing training grants to try to respond to this. Locally, our teams are out there handling mass layoffs, but as you'll hear in this call, we continue to provide our career counseling services. We continue to provide our job recruitment events. There are a lot of people hiring, and some of the questions that I'm seeing coming in right now are relative to hiring. And then we connect access to training, which is one of the reasons we wanted our partner at CCBC to be here today. So this is a quick overview of the status of what major programs are. We know this is being recorded and put on YouTube. By the time people start watching this, hopefully there have been additional rounds of stimulus come that support our workers. So with that, let me introduce our panel. Some of our panelists have been working with us for many years, and some of them are internal. But what you're seeing here is a breakdown of state, local, and our primary training provider. So I think what I'll do with that is, because I think we're going to jump into questions after that, is I'm going to ask each of our panelists to make an introduction to themselves before we get into sending the questions into them. So Michael Harrison and Andrew Fulginiti representing Secretary Robinson, Howard Marshall and Tracy Tyler representing our agency here in Baltimore County, and Steve Church representing CCBC. So with that, I'll turn off my screen, and I am going to go in that order and ask folks to introduce themselves and what their responsibility has been during the COVID crisis. So with that, could I ask Michael, followed by Andrew, to introduce themselves and represent Department of Labor.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you, Will. Thank you for the introduction. Happy to be here. Happy to partner with County Executive and Baltimore County. I'm Michael Harrison, Policy Director with the department. Been with the department for a number of years now. So we are assisting all constituents seeking claims for unemployment. We realize there's a lot of problems being reported in the press. A lot of people are having problems with the new website that launched a couple of weeks ago to allow extensive benefits under the CARES Act, the $600 for all the self-employed, the gig economy workers, the independent contractors, as well as the state benefits. Maryland is the only state with a comprehensive unemployment website. We know it will be working, and it's going to be a tremendous tool for Marylanders. Unfortunately, it has not met expectations, but we are working around the clock, our entire team, to fix all the problems. Earlier today, we announced a new fix to the website for anyone who has been locked out of their account through the weekly web cert problem. All of those web certs have been unlocked, so people can go back into their account and file previous week's web certs. We think this is roughly half to almost 2/3 of the complaints that we're getting from people who have been filing their weekly web certs, but then all of a sudden maybe made a mistake with the new system and were locked down. So we're very happy this release came out today. We're hopeful that it solves a lot of problems out there and people will start receiving benefits soon. There is information on our website at mdunemployment.com. We've posted 4 online video tutorials. We have many handbooks about logging in, problems that we're seeing, trying to fix those problems, frequently asked questions. I'd urge everybody to visit our website, study all the resources available to see if you can help solve the issue that you're having. If you're not, there's email addresses and phone numbers on the website, and we have teams of people working around the clock to respond to those emails as quickly as we can. But happy to take questions and see what kind of issues Baltimore County residents are having. Thank you.
Those questions are coming in as we speak, Michael. So thank you. We really appreciate. I've been on a couple of webinars with your team, and I know your team is swamped, and there's a lot of frustration boiling over. But I think some of some of the progress that was announced this weekend is really remarkable. I've seen some of the numbers of how many people have been successful. Andrew, could you make an introduction of yourself as well, please?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Will and County Executive, for having Team Labor here be a part of this webinar. We're happy to participate. We've been on several of these town hall webinar events, and they really are a great resource. Not only to Baltimore County residents, but all the participants. It helps us, the department, get our message and a lot of our resources out to a good group of people. So we appreciate you having us on. As Michael stated, we are, and as Will stated, we are working through this challenge just like everyone else. The surge has been great. We're constantly making improvements to our website, the new platform we have, to all of our resources. Probably one of the greatest resources available to the general public right now is our main webpage. It's mdunemployment.com. We are constantly updating that webpage with resources, whether it be video tutorials, information about logging into the site. Anytime we have a update to the system, we are putting that information there. We encourage people to utilize that. It empowers them to hopefully address some of the concerns that they're seeing, and without having to go through some of our resources right now, our call centers that are really experiencing a surge and people that need assistance. So definitely want to make sure that people are aware of that web page, that encourage them to check back frequently. We're here to hopefully answer some of their questions. Things are changing rapidly, but as Michael noted, we are truly working around the clock to not only get responses out to the constituents, but also try and get these benefits out the doors as quickly as we possibly can. We know there are a lot of people, facing that economic reality right now, and they need results. So we're working every day towards that goal.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it. Let's jump to Steve before we come into to our internal team. Steve, can you give just a quick, brief intro? We'll come back to some of your programming. I have some questions for you about programming, but could you do a quick intro for our audience, please?
Sure. And thanks again, Will, for having us. It's really nice to be able to let people know what kind of resource that CCBC can be in a time like this. And I would say, my role is Assistant Dean of Health and Business Services. So I'm on the workforce development side of the college. So those are all of our short-term credential-based trainings. And so what I think we can do in this time is our role would be to create training solutions for individuals that have been affected, whether that's having them complete their education that they've already started before the crisis and having to reconfigure our training methods, or if they are in an industry, as you mentioned before, that's affected from an economic perspective, that they can also get retrained in a new industry or upskill their abilities to come out in a better place on the back end of this. And I think the other thing that we're going to do is try to meet employer needs. You mentioned that there are employers that are still hiring. And so if they have training needs for their individuals, or they're looking for a specific skill set, we can help provide that.
Great, thank you, Steve. We'll circle back to dig into some of that. I think CCBC becomes more and more vital when our economy has big disruptions that history has shown. So Howard, could you do an introduction of yourself, please? I think you're on mute. There you go.
Okay. Howard Marshall, Career Center Manager, and I've been with the department for the better part of 2 decades. And in my role, I am responsible for the direction of our career centers, our team of managers who work along with me to make sure that county constituents receive the resources, the training, if you will, that they need to be successful. In this COVID environment, probably the biggest challenge has been to galvanize our workforce staff and prepare them for a remote work environment, keeping in mind that we work primarily in career centers, brick and mortar facilities, and now taking everything, all of the services that we provide, and moving it into a remote work environment. So it's been challenging. We've met the challenge, and I look forward to being on the panel today to discuss the additional services and resources that county residents can take advantage of.
Thanks, Howard. Tracy, can you do an introduction for our audience, please?
Certainly. Good afternoon, everybody and panelists. Thank you, Will, for inviting me to attend. My name is Tracy Tyler. I'm the manager of the Liberty Career Center in Ramstown, which is one of our 3 centers location, and then also in Essex, our East Point location as well. So I'm pleased to be here and answer any questions that I can, and let everybody know that our staff is working really hard remotely to still provide the same level of service we would if we were in the center. So thank you.
Great. So I think we have, we have a whole life cycle of organizations represented here. We have, with our labor partners, they're at the front end of taking in really the response of people losing their jobs right at the front door, and getting them into a system where we can survive what's going on with COVID. But actually it brings us into these other resources that you see here with workforce centers like we have here in the county and other counties in the city have, and then training providers like CCBC and other training providers. And it's that big of a disruption that it's time for people to begin thinking about, once I get through the unemployment hurdle, what's next? Because this is going to be a long change, but there's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of support out there. And as you'll hear from Howard and Tracy specifically, we have a lot of success helping people at our job centers re-navigate careers in normal conditions. So we know we're going to be doing it in these conditions. And I'm reminded of Beth Steel, as the 2012, when that steel plant finally went bankrupt. It had been flipping hands several times, and we were dealing with people for years who were losing their jobs. But then as steel went away, we had thousands of expert steel makers without a place to apply those skills. They needed reskilling. And we spent a couple of years working with them. Everybody on this call, as a matter of fact, every organization on this call spent years getting people retrained and into new industries. Now we have an entire new industry down at Trade Point Atlantic. But the fact is, there's organizations out there for the people that are listening to get help. So where I'd like to start is with the big issues of our day. I don't want to spend our whole meeting on this, but I think I'll throw it to you, Michael, and that is about unemployment insurance. We do know about the vendor problems. We do know at the local level how many people have been sort of trying to get into the system, or to your point about modifying their applications. And Mark is one of our listeners who just asked a question about that. Can they call in, or can they go do something to make edits to their application? So I'd love for you to just focus in for just a second about where we're at numbers wise, and particularly where we're at with the beacon system that you all put in. It sounds like there was a huge success over the weekend about the number of people that the new system supported. Could you just start there about those technical issues and where we are in resolving them?
Sure. I'm going to pull up some notes I've got here that we just announced this morning. On Sunday alone, the site processed 141,000 weekly claim certifications. We're averaging about 5,800 every hour. This is more than double the 65,000 weekly claim certifications that were processed last Sunday, the weekend the site launched. So capacity is increasing. We're working with the vendor to make positive changes. We're trying to get there. It's still not up to par. We're still having trouble, but hopefully the weekly cert change that we launched today, people can start logging back in to file those previous weeks. The ones I did this past week will be automatically done. Hopefully that will fix things. We're processing several 100,000 total claims. So people are receiving benefits, but there's still far too many that are still having problems that we need to address.
Okay, so but it sounds like the beacon system has been largely repaired, and it's flowing at a great rate. Those numbers are pretty astounding. I mean, if you're taking in 6,000 an hour, you could process in the matter of half a day everybody that's gotten through in Baltimore County so far. So that seems like an order of magnitude of improvement. We've got a follow-up question from Katie. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, the first week that we launched the website, we had to use this virtual line system from Qt, and it was to kind of throttle capacity to allow the users that were in the system to have a better experience. Since the capacity of the website's been improved, that queue has largely gone away. I know last week some people were seeing 60,000 people in front of them to get in the website. That has largely disappeared. People can get onto the website with no wait now, and so we expect that to be able to continue.
Fantastic. So Elizabeth was asking about making small corrections and editing, and who can they contact for that? I think you just addressed that. I think you're saying this, if they revisit mdunemployment.com, they can now make those edits to their application.
They should be able to get in there into the web cert. There's a link to file your web cert on their unemployment website. So if they go into their account, it just launched today, and I haven't gotten any reports back, but the system is set up so that they're supposed to be able to answer different questions or answer questions differently. Part of our problem was the U.S. federal government tells us what has to be on these weekly web certs. In our old system, before the PUA was in effect, we didn't have to ask all these questions. But with the PUA in effect from the federal government, we had to add several questions. I think we're up to 10 questions on the web cert, and they were confusing. And the first week they were out, a lot of people were making mistakes, which led to being locked down. The weekly certs are required. We can't stop collecting those. We have waived the work search requirement, but we still have to do the weekly web certs. So everybody has to go in weekly. Sundays and Mondays are only for existing claimants to file their web certs. And so if you file it every week on Sunday, Monday, and answer the questions. We've edited those questions in the past few days to make it more clear. And there's also the online video tutorial for the web cert, and there's several frequently asked questions to hopefully help people address their issues.
Okay, well, we have some questions about the timing of things, but just so I can be clear, a lot of people are asking for contacts. A lot of people are asking for, they're not able to get through on phone. Some of them are calling our offices and other local offices that really aren't in the system. Is there a way for people to contact somebody for technical assistance that you haven't mentioned already here?
Well, the vendor has a technical support email address. It's beacon.support, BEACON is beacon.support@maryland.gov. If people can email that with their specific questions, if the system doesn't recognize a social security number or they have gone through all the steps to reset their username and password and just aren't able to, I would urge you to email beacon.support@maryland.gov. And
thank you. Katie's asking a question about timing. So how long after, I think she filed a month ago, how long after filing should people expect to receive their debit cards?
And that's a tricky question, but that's $1 million question. Everybody wants to know when their benefits are going to be arriving. Unfortunately, without, if there several issues could cause a delay. Some claims are fairly straightforward and simple. If someone has one job for the past 5 quarters and are able to verify wages, it can go pretty smoothly. The adjudicator from the claims center will reach out to the claimant and the employer, verify the information, and then be able to issue a debit card fairly quickly. Under normal circumstances, we were processing 90% of claims within 21 days. Now that is going to be extended, and I don't have any new data. But there's some claims that are more complicated. If somebody has several jobs, each one of those jobs has to be verified. And so it can take a little bit longer. And for the independent contractors and the new filers, I don't have any new data on when they can expect to receive the card. But once once the claim is processed, we notify Bank of America, who issues the debit card. Bank of America takes approximately 7 to 10 days to mail the card. And once you have the card, there are ways that you can transfer the account from the debit card to your checking account. You don't have to use just the debit card.
Just the card. Okay. Before we move off of unemployment, Andrew, I think I have one I wanted to throw your way. This is a question that is coming in from somebody, several residents actually in the county, that they were approved and began receiving benefits, but then they stopped. The benefits stopped. What would you advise them to do, Andrew?
Yeah, so it's a good question. It's one question that we receive a lot. It again, as Michael kind of indicated, the reason why benefits stopped could be a number of reasons. It seems like right now we're experiencing a lot of them were due to that weekly web certification and the addition of those new questions that were kind of confusing. A lot of these first-time filers, have never been through the system, so they were not clear on the answers they needed for those questions. So the new automated fix that Michael spoke to today hopefully will address a lot of those issues. So if they are go into their new Beacon account and go in and go back through some of those weekly web certs that they may have incorrectly answered questions on, that should fix some of them. There are some instances where, as Michael noted, if the initial claims process, if something comes up during that process, whether it be information was received from the employer that says they may have made an error on their wages, or there's some sort of discrepancy, those have to be by law interviewed through an adjudication process. So those processes kind of delay benefits. Obviously, we're required by law, and anytime something gets flagged like that, we do have to go through an adjudication process. So a lot of those people, some people that may be in that situation, they'll receive notice directly from the department that we are investigating their claim. They'll receive contact about a scheduled interview, and they will be interviewed along with their employer to determine what it is that's causing the hold, and hopefully can smoothly resolve those issues. But we're hopeful that most of those are just the web cert issues, and they can be fixed by the claimants themselves going through the web portal.
We're putting a lot of faith in the new system. It's off to a good start here this weekend, so I hope for everyone's sake that it really delivers like that. I'd like to shift some of our questions on to some of the other services that we have out there for folks. I think I'll actually start with Tracy. And Tracy, you've been running our Career Services Center in times of crisis and in normal times where unemployment's at 3%, right? And those are different conditions to be operating in. I know I'm seeing questions coming in here about what can you do to help me? And I would love if you could sort of take this question I'm seeing from several people. With the career centers being closed, including yours at Liberty, are you still able to help me and help people consider a new career path?
Thanks, Will. Yes, we absolutely still can, even though we're not in the brick and mortar anymore. We are still offering as many similar career services as we can remotely. All of our career counselors are available and are doing outreach to citizens who have questions about what they can do right now. We can offer the resume review and critique and cover letter. We can definitely do some job search analysis through our career assessments and help interpret those. I know that navigating online applications are new now, so we can also talk to you about how to do that as well. So as many things as we do in the center, we're still able to do without the face-to-face.
Okay, well, this one's coming in as you're talking here. I've been laid off from my current job from over 20 years. And now everything is done online in a career search, and I'm not used to that. I need help getting up to speed with online applications, uploading my resume, figuring out how to use LinkedIn. Is that a part of the offering you can help people with?
Yes, it is. So our consultants can literally walk a person through step by step on how to do it. The Maryland Workforce Exchange is a great place to get your feet wet with that because there are videos and tutorials that help you through that process. We also refer a lot of persons to the GCF Learn Free website, which is sponsored by Goodwill Industries. It is a fantastic place to learn everything from computer skills to keyboarding and math and LinkedIn. So our staff can certainly help a person that way too. But I know if someone's been in their industry for 20 years and they didn't have to ever do anything with technology, this can be a little scary, which is where significant coaching will come in.
Can you share that? I know one of our career counselors, Annie, had helped somebody in a similar situation. That might, if we give that example, I know you don't need to give names, but I think it would be good if you could give an example of Annie's customer and how she helped them in their career path.
Sure. So Annie Hatchett is one of our longtime career consultants, and she was working with a particular customer who had been in retail management for a number of years and wanted to make a career change. So through a series of meetings and career assessments, it was determined that she could transition her skill set into the healthcare industry. And so she enrolled in central sterile processing training with CCBC, and she is going really well. I mean, before we had to go remote, last check-in, things were going well.
Excellent. I think people don't always know that we have this team of career counselors that can make that connection like Annie did. And then maybe Steve, when we get to you, you can fill in a little detail about that specific program. Howard, let me just jump to you for a moment. Thank you, Tracy. When you think about talent management and the work we do, we're getting questions. Here's a few of them that are combined. I've been laid off from my job at a restaurant. I'd like to find another position in food service. Who's hiring now? And here's a follow-up question from somebody else. I need to get back to work yesterday. What industries are my best bet? And do you have a list of businesses that are hiring right now? What would you say to them, Howard?
Okay, thanks, Will. Let's start with the first question, that the person who has experience in food service, and we know that the restaurant industry has taken a tremendous hit with this shift with COVID. So it's important to know and understand that we serve two distinct different customer groups. We serve the job seeker customer group, as Tracy mentioned, but we also serve the businesses of Baltimore County as well. So that's where our talent management team comes in. Now, our department has developed something called a virtual job board. It's on our webpage. And that person who's looking for a job that has perhaps food service experience or restaurant experience, they can find listings of jobs on our job board with employers who are hiring, such as Costco, Giants, also Martin's, which is a subsidiary of Giants, Safeway, Weiss, Royal Farms. These are real employers who have real jobs that we have listed and advertised, that someone who have that skill set in food service can they can look at those job announcements. They can apply, and they would have an excellent opportunity to transfer their skills into those areas. Also, we have a Facebook page, and in this era of social media, our department has a Facebook page where job announcements are regularly promoted. So anyone who is a Facebook user, I would encourage them to like our Facebook page and go there and see those employment listings. A third, but not least, is the Maryland Workforce Exchange, which is the state-wide web portal that we and other workforce areas use with matching employers who are looking to hire and job seekers who are looking to be hired. So those are just a few resources for that person who is seeking employment in a specific area. But you also had a good question, Will, in terms of the person who just needs work yesterday. So with our talent management group and with that job board, you're going to see a whole listing of employers such as Amazon, Becton Dixon, GBMC, others, Gray and Son, Gotham Greaves, which our business services unit is working with, who have immediate opportunities. So this is
Howard, as you're talking it through, I'm gonna pull that up so I can show people while you're talking.
Sure.
Yeah, keep explaining. I'm gonna show people where they can find it from our site, and we'll link it at the end.
Sure. So it's important for listeners on this webinar to understand that we're not only looking at occupations, we're also looking at industries. So when you consider industries such as protective services, manufacturing, production, healthcare, administrative support, those are industries that are thriving in this COVID-19 environment.
This is quite a list you've built up here, Howard. And I know we just met with other companies like McCormick yesterday that are anxious to get their listings up here. I think some of the McCormick jobs have come and been filled, but they're about to hire dozens more to ramp up in their food production. So this is, I think there's a short URL here that is baltimorecountymd.gov/job board. Let me just try that real quick. Job board.
Mm-hmm.
And yep, that takes you right to this list. And I know your teams have been updating this list. It just keeps on growing. So, and a lot of apply now. So that's fantastic. It covers healthcare, it covers food, manufacturing, office, automotive. There's a ton here. So I really appreciate that. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. We're going to link that at the end. I have one more quick question for you, Howard, and I need to give some time to Steve before we get close to our end, and that's about a question that came in. I would like to shift into a new career, but money is very tight. Can you help me with fees and training material? This will actually be a nice segue into Steve as well. Did you make a comment on that, Howard, before we move over to Steve?
Absolutely. Thanks, Will. For persons who want to make that transition and perhaps they need assistance with fees or training materials, there's such a thing called supportive services for persons who are fully enrolled in our workforce programming. There's a couple of nice examples that I'd like to briefly share, or stories I'd like to briefly share. One is a continuation of Annie's customer, the one that Tracy mentioned, who was in the central sterile processing program with CCBC. Well, it reached a point in this individual's training where they needed to be vaccinated. They needed shots so that they could move forward in the clinical portion of that training. Now, under ordinary circumstances, it would be very easy. The customer would make an appointment, come into the center, work with their career counselor, get that done. In the remote environment, a little bit more challenging because there's no face-to-face communication. However, our career services team partnered with our fiscal team to make sure that the appropriate documentation was transferred and we were still able to fund those vaccinations for our customers so they're able to move forward with training.
I'm gonna have to hold you at one story, sorry,
okay.
Because I know that we had some in commercial driver's licenses as well. But I do want to jump over to Steve because we're getting questions as you're talking, Howard. We're getting questions about, well, how is CCBC able to help me with fees and tuition and financial aid? What are the promising healthcare careers? So people are interested in this, Steve. If we could, if you could give a quick overview of the training opportunities that people should be paying attention to right now.
Sure. I'd be happy to. And it is a nice segue from what Howard was talking about. And I think I want to start by just saying that I just want people to know that CCBC is still open. We've had to obviously adjust our face-to-face offerings based on the current situation. But we are monitoring and following the state state's lead as far as bringing students back safely on campus. So one thing I want to say is the fact that we do have a significant online opportunity for students. We have over 800 online courses or hybrid courses. So that provides a nice opportunity for students who still want to get retrained but can't come onto a campus at this point. To talk more specifically about particular programming, a lot of our, we have a significant portfolio of these short-term credential-based trainings, many in those essential occupations that have come up quite time and time again, things like transportation and logistics. So you mentioned truck driving, so our CDL program, our logistics associate program. And I think one thing we see is, you know, the demand in healthcare. We see the stresses placed on, you know, those frontline workers. And so employers are still hiring in the healthcare field. There's a tremendous need for these individuals. And so things like nursing assistant will become even more in demand than it already is. Medical office assistant, community health worker, talking about some of the public health infrastructure that will probably be developed out of this. So these are a couple of different programs. Construction manufacturing is another industry sector. So apartment maintenance technician, production technicians. These are programs that are going to be there. You can get them in a short credential-based format, and you know they're going to be valuable in the workplace in the near future. I think I'd also want to add, someone mentioned about how, you know, their finances aren't necessarily in the place where they were. So how can CCBC help with that? And I think one of the biggest things we've seen in the last few years is there's a shift in awareness of the need for these, not necessarily a degree program, but something that comes with a specific skill set and industry recognized credential. And so there's been a lot more specific investment, both at federal, state, and local levels in these types of programs. So there's a lot more financial aid opportunities available. Things like we partnered with, Will, you and your team on grant applications for dislocated workers. There is specific opportunities for Baltimore County youth. The out-of-school youth program, our LEAP program, works with 18 to 24-year-olds, and it provides not only the technical training, but some of those job development, mentoring, and coaching skills that go along with it. The state has provided some specific funding called the Maryland Workforce Sequence Scholarship. So that provides financial assistance to students enrolled in one of those credential-based programs. And I know that there's actually a link for all the contact information for all these various programs that we're discussing in the slides. Another one is the county executive is continuing his support behind the College Promise program. And not only, I think one of the things that sets this Promise program apart from others is not only degree-based programs, but also these workforce-based programs are qualified for this funding mechanism. You mentioned earlier.
Can I interrupt you while you're talking, because I know we're wrapping up. I'm going to pull up that resource. We're getting a lot of questions from people about, okay, where's the link? Show me that, you know, Howard's talking about Facebook. I'm going to pull up some of these resources.
Sure.
As you're talking. Not to cut you off, but
nope.
I know we do have some of these resources. Let me jump into yours for a second, because these were,
there it is right there.
These were very specific to the programs you were talking about.
Correct. And you'd mentioned the Central Sterile Processing program, and that actually is it's a very solid job in the healthcare industry, and it's fortunate to be funded by one of our recent grants that we were fortunate enough to receive from the Department of Labor as part of our Scaling Up Apprenticeships grant. And so there's the Central Services Technician program, there's a medical front office or medical administration program, and then we're working to design an apprenticeship program in medical assisting. So it's totally all expenses are covered through through that particular grant. And then also some private foundations. So we were just received word in the last month or so that we were granted a nursing assistant grant from the Stolman Foundation. So we're very thankful for that. You know, internal community college or internal CCBC grants. We have a foundation internal to the college that provides financial assistance. So I would say that, you know, that there are a lot more opportunities to get financial aid for non-credit or workforce-based programs than even 5 years ago when I joined the college. So,
Steve, I think the bottom line here is that CCBC is really all in on workforce at a moment when we need it. I'm excited that you've got two of the county executives' key priorities here with how he supported that College Promise scholarship at the county level has been remarkable and so life-changing. And the county executives youth program, LEAP program that we do with you is fantastic as well. I think what I'd like to do, since we're running out of time and the questions that are coming in are people are looking for this kind of information. Where do I go? What do I do? What I'd like to do is these are some of the resources that we've been mentioning as where to begin. So what I'd like to do is maybe Michael, if you could wrap up with any final thoughts you'd like on behalf of the Department of Labor. I have a Department of Commerce site up here as well. We do a lot with small businesses, but if you could speak your final input, and then we'll kind of close out the session.
Yeah, thanks. Real quickly, two things. I think as we get further into the recovery and more businesses start reopening and bringing employers back, there's a program that the department offers called WorkShare, where the employer signs up, the employees work a reduced wage and reduced hours, and they receive partial unemployment benefits to offset that reduction in wages. It's a great program. It's going to become more popular. We've seen a lot of interest from employers. There's information on our website. If you go to mdunemployment.com and look for the WorkShare, the employers sign up. We're launching a new streamlined application. All applications are approved. We work with the employer to get everything right on the application, push them through. It's 100% federally funded, and the employer unemployment tax rates would go down less than having staff completely unemployed than having them on partial unemployment. So it's a good deal for business. We've got more information on the website. I'll refer you to that. And also, we're getting questions from employers there who are receiving the PPP payroll protection program. They need to bring employees back. The employees are on unemployment, and they may be making more on unemployment than they would be working, and they're refusing to come back to work. We are going to be putting guidance up on our website soon, but claimants cannot refuse work and still collect unemployment benefits. So the employer would contact the department and provide us some information, and we can work with the employer to get that. But we are getting a lot of questions that employees don't want to come back to work because they're making more on unemployment, but you can't stay on unemployment when your employer is asking you to return to work. I think that's going to become more of an issue as we get further into the recovery. So.
Yeah, as we start to ease and pieces of the economy come back, it's really going to be fluid. So it looks like you're pushing everybody to mdunemployment.com. Andrew, did you have anything you wanted to close with as well before we move through the rest of the panel and close out?
No, I think Michael pretty much covered it. As we discussed, mdunemployment.com, it is truly our one-stop shop for resources, and we constantly are updating it. So please look out for information on that as we move forward and make changes to our systems and our processes to better serve the people in need right now.
Well, thank you both for joining us. You can see, I'll just mention our county sites. And Steve, I know you gave a lot of detail on your specific programming sites and email addresses and phone numbers people can go to, but I gave sort of your universal one here for reaching CCBC. Some folks have been asking, well, what's the Facebook site? Folks have been asking, where's the job board? Here's the links to those two resources. We try to keep both of them completely current, but every day we're doing new recruitments for companies, fortunately, and they're out there for you. And it's a difficult time to be figuring out how you change careers, figuring out how you get a job, figuring out how you make it until these benefits come. So we really appreciate all the listeners that are looking for these resources. We know they're frustrated. In many cases, we're frustrated with you as well that we can't get these resources out the door fast enough to you. But this will be on public display at YouTube. These resources will continue to be open all through the state of emergency. And I really want to thank on behalf of County Executive Olszewski, everybody making time to join us today. I know we didn't get to all of our questions. We also didn't get to the future. I think there is really some amazing things happening, like Retrain America. There's initiatives that how are we going to change what we do in workforce in general coming out of this? So there are a lot of forward-leaning initiatives that are coming, and we hope that you'll stay tuned by sticking with us at these web addresses. So with that, I'd like to close it out. Unless anybody had any final remarks, I think we'll end the session. Again, thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you for everyone listening today, and we'll catch you on our next webinar series. Thanks, Courtney, Todd, and everybody behind the scenes keeping us moving here. Have a good day.